You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith. Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, this is AFTERBUZZ TV for Californication. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest Californication news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, picking up where the show leaves off, and the buzz continues.
Welcome everybody. This is Phil Svitek. I am going solo again, not to date this podcast, but it was the night of the Super Bowl between the Giants and the Patriots. We won't talk about that too much because most of us here are from the Boston area, at least the people that hosted with me. I know Kevin. But needless to say, not everyone could be here, so it is me again, solo this week for Californication Season 5, Episode 5, titled The Ride Along. And rightly so, because that's the main theme is them riding along. Speaking of that, I actually really loved the premise of this episode. I thought it was really fun. It reminded me of what movies like American Graffiti or Dazed and Confused or any of those high school movies where it's the last night, we're graduating and we don't know what we're going to do with our lives kind of movies are, except if you take those movies and then put adults into it, and ironically, the adults tonight, whether it be Runkle, Hank, Sam, or Karen's boyfriend, Bates, they really don't act like adults in the end. And before I fully move into to this week's episode, I do want to say I actually had a lot of you guys write in, and in the heat of the moment when I was doing last week's episode, I neglected the fact I talked about how Runkle got excited between the girl and they made a connection about the fact that they had books, and he's like, "Oh, I sold the rights to that book." And many of you pointed out that it was in fact the irony was that it was Bates's book that Runkle sold the rights to. So really awesome specific details that the writers of this show do. So thank you guys for writing that in. If you have further details that I miss, I love seeing that. That's how we make this podcast really great, is when you bring in perspectives of your own, because there's so many details that it's so hard to keep track of them all, and especially when you're just talking about it off the cuff. Anyway, so tonight's episode, we go along for the ride along, and before we talk about the ride along, I want to talk about Sam and his relationship with Collie. We find out that she's kind of broken it off, and as one can imagine, he's very upset about it. And I'm always kind of timing, for me, the head-on collision. We know Hank and Sam will have to confront each other about this eventually. It's just a matter of when, and so I love the way the pressure sort of mounts to that. I love the symbolism of them at the shooting range and all of that. It just really makes it fun. I thought maybe it would happen in this episode where we would find out, but no. I like how in tonight's episode the twist is that she's actually she's declared herself quote unquote free woman, and she's out with someone else. It's not Hank. And while speaking of the shooting range, I really like what Sam, and I'm gonna call him Sam. I may at times switch over to Apocalypse, but Sam just for short, because it seems to be, as funny as his name used to be, Samurai Apocalypse. They've kind of just shortened it to now Sam, so they're not absurd for the sake of being absurd all the time. But Sam says to Hank, you're quite the negative guy. You have, to me, Hank is a cynic, and I always kind of felt that, but I like how Sam is really the first guy to, at least for me, from what I can remember, the first guy to really bring that up and confront Hank about it, because he is quite the cynic. And, as much as we see things happen to Hank, in many ways, one can argue they're by his own design. I mean, that's kind of what the show is about, and especially I feel like this season, we'll get into more of Becca and her boyfriend, which I call Hank 2.0 for those of you who have been following this season. That's the self-realization that, everything that is happening is because Hank brought it on. And you know what? In the words of Sam, it might not do too bad for Hank to have some positivity in his life, at least, positive thinking. But anyway, we know just that'll take some time. Maybe by the end of the season that'll happen. I don't know. But regardless, at least for me and the rest of the audience, we know that's kind of Hank's downfall. But anyway, so Sam arranges to have a ride along with the cops, or at least a cop rather, and Runkle decides to be a part of that, which, again, I love how they throw him in, and it's a fun explanation of him being, it's always been a childhood dream of mine, and how that comes to fruition, and completely opposite of what cops really are. The one thing I will say, while they were riding, the episode got really, really fun once they left the cop, and as they were sort of riding with this cop, it was slightly over the top. I didn't necessarily mind it, but I just felt it was a little bit too long, especially since the direction that they were going to head into was them having the freedom without the cop, and that's when, the main plot points hit. And so by having the cop, I felt they just had him a little bit too long. I don't know if they were trying to fill time or whatever, but that aspect of the story I didn't like as much. I would have much rather preferred to really see them kind of go on their journey. Again, in the vein of how, for those of you, American Graffiti is an old George Lucas movie, and then Dazed and Confused is, I forget, Richard Linklater's film. And, it's, again, they were just contained by this cop. I mean, I understand they were sort of debugging the myths of being a cop. I love how Runkle's like, aren't you going to pull him over? He's driving text in, and so it was comedic in that sense. But again, for me, the fun really was in after they left him at the hospital and they were free to do whatever they wanted. And I love the continuating joke that Santa Monica cop is indeed Beverly Hills cop, and of course, ironically enough, that's everyone that says that Samurai Apocalypse is, in his terms, Whitey. And the whole point of I forget how he said it, but basically the notion is Santa Monica cop is black guy trying to fuck up Whitey in the streets of Santa Monica as a cop. So then, I forget how the mission is brought upon, but someone tips off Samurai that that Kali is at the club with someone else, and that gives them a mission to go off of. And I like how it gets Hank and Samurai to the point of meeting her together, because for the most part, there's been instances where the three of them have all been together, and it's always obviously uncomfortable for Hank. But the good news now is that there's the perpetrator that they're after is someone else, so it allows, hopefully in Hank's eyes, the heat off of him. But it also serves to, by Hank seeing what Samurai is really, really capable of. I mean, impersonating a cop, obviously, it's a TV show and things like that, but that is a federal offense. And, as immediately as Samurai tells him, roll down your window, let's see, license registration, I like how his main objective out of that was to figure out where this guy lives, so that way, he can really F this guy up. And he does, to some extent. I don't know if he'd call it effing him up, but he certainly brought him pain when he batted him with the baton. And then, it's interesting how preoccupied Samurai was, so that Hank and Collie could have the conversation that they did. That conversation I really liked, because it set up, the secret pact that, I know they had an unspoken truth, but now it's verbalized where, okay, you're not going to say anything, and I'm not going to say anything. Again, so it just continually builds this false hope within these characters that, we're fooling Sam. I know, it's always nerve-wracking when the subject is brought up, but at the least he doesn't suspect. So then we're off the hook. But what it also does is it just shows more of, as Collie points out, that Samurai is really crazy, and Hank is seeing how crazy it is. And then it also, this whole, if it wasn't for Collie, I think Samurai and Hank would really be good friends, as Hank says to Collie. I keep trying to get away from it, but he keeps bringing back, and he states it's for three reasons: the money, and the weed. But in the end, I think, as nice as the money is, I think this is genuinely Hank's friend. I think, as I pointed out earlier, Sam brought up that Hank is too negative. And in Samurai, it seems, is Hank's kind of opposite, yet the connection between them is also deep. They are very much alike and yet different at the same time. For lack of a better description. So, and then parallel to that is the fact that Hank gets a call. Well, before we get into that, I do. You guys know that I love talking about Runkle and the craziness and the comedy that he really brings to Californication. And the girl off the street that he's just so gentlemanly, and I love the smile on his face when he's lying to her about being part of the cops, and then he's in fact the detective, and he has to teach, he likes to make sure that everyone in the field kind of knows what they're doing, so he tags along on these ride-alongs, and then he gets the best BJ ever. And again, what makes it really funny is that it is the best BJ ever, and he goes into the rant that he does about, which is very much true. To be an expert in anything, you need 10,000 hours worth of practice at it, and so it just goes to show how many, I'll just say it bluntly, dicks this guy sucked, and from what I've read, I've read Tucker Max. For those of you who don't know Tucker Max, he makes a living off writing vulgar stories, and there's a story about him getting with the guy. But nonetheless, how guys, it's kind of like how lesbians really know how to cater, girls know how to cater to girls because girls are girls and they know what makes them feel good. And so in that situation, the guy being guy really knew how to get off Runkle. And oh my God, just so funny. And I love how, you know, Samurai and Hank give Runkle a hard time about it, because we as the audience, at least for me, I would do the same thing. And as I'm watching this, I so want to say the same thing. So very, very funny. And Runkle just continues to go down the tubes. And all cause, and he finds out simply because of his horniness. He had to, as he did with the nanny, stick his hand where he shouldn't have. Unfortunately, in this case, it's not necessarily that he gets punished in a different way. Let's just say that. The one thing about the Runkle storyline, I predicted last week that we'd see more between him and the blind date last week. I don't know if they're abandoning that or if they're just saving that for next episode or whatever it may be. I really want to see that continue. I'm excited for that, especially since Runkle feels like there was that connection between him and his date. As funny as tonight's subplot was with Runkle, I do want to see him get back on track. And especially, I would like to see what happened tonight only serve to the fact that, he is slightly a dog, as we know, and that he must get back on track. As he says to his nanny, he's lost the ability to connect with women. And clearly he has lost that ability because he's hooking up with a guy. So, just overall very, very funny. To parallel what Hank, or not Hank, what Sam had to go through, Hank gets a phone call from Becca. It is believed, obviously, about what is happening. And, before that, I really like the conversation that Sam and Hank do have, where Sam, once again, is jabbing at Hank, saying, you know what, you're a condescending mother effer. And in this argument, I like Hank's rebuttal to that, where it's like, no, we're relating. And, and they really are, because, again, this episode, they made that very clear. In the way that they structured it with, first Sam has to deal with, quote, his woman that he can't have, and then Hank has to do the same thing. But obviously for Hank, there's slightly a deeper tie and all that, but nevertheless, it's something that they can relate on. And I like, and you know what? I never like to think in these terms, but at the end of the day, what's nice is, Samurai Apocalypse's main thing is, we got Whitey. And, in many ways, Hank and Samurai are totally opposites. Hank is white and Samurai is black. But nevertheless, they have so much in common. And so Hank gets the phone call, immediately goes there. And I like how, well, as you know, Bates is there naked, which, from the previews, I didn't know how that would fit into the episode and in the context of things. I really, really liked it because, it serves on so many levels. It puts Bates and Hank on pretty much the same level. I mean, this is what he's doing is kind of Hank stuff. So Karen is realizing, wow, this guy's no better than Hank. Have I made a mistake? 2, in many ways, in the eyes of, well, I was going to say it elevates Tyler in the eyes of Becca because, she's seeing this guy do what her father would have done and believing that Tyler won't do the same thing, yet he's sort of the one who propelled it forward and finds it very comedic. And then it serves, in some ways, as a heroic act for Hank to Karen. Because, he showed up and, the last episode's theme was, paraphrasing, Hank, the world is changing around you. You just haven't kept up with it. And you know what? This this might have been the moment of like, you know what, I am changing a little bit. And so Hank probably realized that, or at least the fact that I can change, especially when Sam is telling him that you're too negative, So he might be starting to make the change to positivity because of this. And then Karen might also realize the same, that, you know what, I thought I was the one changing, but in fact, I just went from Hank to another Hank, and in fact, Hank might actually be changing. So that's what came out of that, I think. And then the fact that they, I was going to say the fact that they pick him up after all of this was very, very funny. Again, just typical guys' night out, or not really typical. You can't say that, but it does remind you of, at least for me, it does, the high school days where you're just driving around, you don't know what the night is going to bring, and it just turns into the crazy night. We all love that, that's why for me, I loved Superbad when it came out. We love these types of crazy, crazy nights, and they make for very good stories. I really like the line that Bates says, like, it's like writing your first short story. It's like almost like you're getting an erection. And so in many ways, for me, this whole story reminded me of the first time, in high school that we as friends would be out driving around. And that kind of nostalgic feeling, which I think, I imagine Californication's audience is a little bit older than me. I'm 23, so, it brings out that nostalgia. But what it also brought out was the truth is learned that although Hank didn't call for the hit on Tyler, as it may be called, he was indirectly involved with it, and this is where I really think Samurai should have been a little bit smarter. That's the guy. You should have stayed away. You say you have your boys back or whatever. That's the time when you just kind of lay low and you pretend that you don't know Hank Moody, and maybe that's pride or whatever. I can certainly see why he would have done that, but I feel like Hank really is starting to understand Samurai's world, but Samurai, especially with the act that he displayed tonight, doesn't really understand Hank's world. But nevertheless, the truth comes out, and I'll get into more with predictions about what that leads to. But I didn't see that coming. Obviously the big thing that we, at least I, we knew that Sam was on a head-on collision with Hank about about Collie and him sleeping with her. But I thought this, to some extent, was never going to be revealed, and it was just going to be more about the pain that it brought to Hank by Becca being back with this guy. But so with that is a kudos to the writers. Anyway, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode. So I'm going to head into a quick commercial, and then I will come back with my predictions for next week. And then hopefully next week as well, the rest of the co-hosts will be back, and we'll have a longer show, and we'll have more opinions. But in the meantime, please keep, tweet us at AfterBuzz TV. Email us at info@AfterBuzzTV.com. I love reading your guys' opinions. A lot of you guys, write in whether you support me or not in terms of the ideas. And I like seeing that. If you have perspectives of your own, let us know, and we'll try to read them on air. Anyway, I'll be back right after this.
AfterBuzz TV. Hi, I was once like you, a lazy, angry loner whose only joy was watching TV and surfing the net. And, like you, after I'd see one of my favorite TV shows, I'd be so excited and have so many questions that I'd actually have to talk to my douchebag coworkers about it at the water cooler. Then I discovered AfterBuzzTV.com. AfterBuzz TV produces after-show webcasts and podcasts for TV series of all kinds, like post-game wrap-up shows for all your favorite TV shows. AfterBuzz TV hosts are industry insiders who break down episodes of shows, take calls from fans, and interview cast and crew from each series, with over 60 different after shows, from Boardwalk Empire to American Idol to Vampire Diaries to Real Housewives, and more. Now, after a night of TV, I can ignore my stupid coworkers, who I hate, and go straight to my desk and watch or listen to all my favorite AfterBuzz TV after shows, and have all the TV fan interaction I need. Thank you, AfterBuzz TV.
AfterBuzz TV. What do you want to buzz about?
Welcome back, everybody. Before I head into predictions, I saw a fun fact about this season, and it's the fact that in prior seasons, specifically season 3, a lot of the episodes weren't written by Tom Capinos. They were written by others. Then in season 4, he wrote a lot of them, but some he did not. There's a few that he partnered on to write them with somebody. But in season 5, up until this episode, Tom has written all of them. It doesn't state whether or not he wrote the rest of the season. That's quite interesting. I feel like that's just an indication of how great Tom Capinos is and how much control he does, in fact, want to have over this character. He wants to make sure that his vision is brought to life and that he has a clear, direct vision, in fact, for Hank Moody. And then another fun fact is that episode 2, which was titled The Way of the Fist, which was actually directed by David Duchovny. And from what it seems, David always seems to direct the first or second episode of each season. He directed season 2, the first episode, season 3, the first episode, episode 2 of season 4, and then it doesn't look like he did anything with season 1, unfortunately. But I actually would like to see David direct more. I know obviously it's tough, especially since he's the title character and the title character has so much, but I think David and Tom jive so well that they're fun episodes. But nevertheless, that's it for what I found out this week, and right on to predictions.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Alright, so the first thing that we see is Hank and Bates sitting outside on the porch, and ironically this time, Bates is trying to get back Karen, and Hank is trying to make amends with Becca. So I think that'll be very, very fun because now there's a bond forming. I like how they picked up Bates, when he's running around naked, which was hysterical. I don't know what'll happen with the cop car. They as we see, Sam and our gang ride off, we see cops immediately follow them with their sirens on. So, the preview didn't really show too much about that. And the big thing is, next episode is literally the midpoint of the season. So is Sam going to find out there about Collie and what Hank did with her? Because they're kind of teasing that, although, they've literally been teasing that every preview. So I don't know whether or not to believe them. But you know what? It may happen next episode, if not by episode 7, because then after that, I think plot-wise, since you reach the midpoint, there may be a big blowout, or they might hold it off for a little bit later. The one thing I know for sure is you really can't hold it off for later than episode 10. And then, we see that Karen does in fact confide in Hank that, I may have made a bad choice. Whether or not she thinks that Hank is good for her, or whatever, she's going to go back to him, remains a whole nother thing. But nevertheless, she confides in him, and from that, whatever happens, we'll see. And Runkle, we don't see too much of him, but I'm excited to kind of see what comedy he brings to this episode, and whether or not, I think his storyline is really built upon the fact that, he can in fact connect with the women, and again, especially after tonight where he couldn't connect with a woman at all, it was a guy. I'm excited to see that, where that sort of heads out. So thank you guys for listening. We will be back next week. Again, follow us. Keep tuning in. Spread the word. Please spread the word, by the way. The one thing that you could do for us, our podcasts are completely free, whether you're watching it or listening to it. We never, ever want to charge. And as much as I can promise it, we never will charge. We don't have many commercials. In fact, the only commercial that we have is just one, and again, that's for us. So we're really dedicated to bringing you the best quality content, whether it be Californication or any other of your other favorite shows. And so the only thing that we ask for in return is that you spread the word. It really helps us. We're all about fan engagement, and you obviously love us, so why not spread the wealth? Anyway, thank you guys, and I'll see you next week.
From producers Kevin Undergaro and Phil Svitek, engineer DJ Jesse Janity, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. If you have questions or comments, be sure to buzz us at info@AfterBuzzTV.com. And you can find us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.